are on Pei Aleph Amid Beis by the first Mishnah, about a little more than halfway down in the wide lines. If someone killed someone without Adam, the Gemara is going to say what that means. How do you know he killed someone? You put him into a jail. You give him a little bit of lechem and a little bit of water, insufficient amounts of both bread and water. So the Gemara, the Mishnah is obviously contradicting the Mishnah we saw before that says you give him barley that causes him to explode. The Gemara is going to explain what it means. Second of all, first of all, if you're talking about someone who there was no Edom, how do you know that he actually killed someone? That you should give him this punishment of putting him in jail. Amarab Eidus Miuchedes. We're talking about there was only a single aid. Ushmuel Amar Shaloi Bahasra. There was no hasra. We're talking about where there were Edim. There were two types of. There were two types of Edim. Well, I should say differently. The Rashi says Eidus Miuchedes means an Eid Echad, two separate Eid Echads. You really have to have the Edim seeing it together. There were two Edim on different places, and the Edim were not together, so they're technically not good. But you do actually have to have Edim in order to get to this. But in the last thing, that's talking about where the Edim have to be interrogated before their edus is accepted. There were two types of questions they were asked. They were asked, first of all, the basic question that allow hazama, like with the time and where and who it was. So those things the Edim got right. But there was chakish b'dikas, which were the extra questions which were used to trip up the Edim. Indeed, in Nefashos, they would ask questions about the details of the scene, and if the Edim gave different answers, then they would not be believed and they wouldn't be able to kill him. Ben Zakkai asked the Edim about the length of the stems of the figs that were in the that were there when the person was being killed was being killed. So he asked like some very irrelevant question, and the two Edim did not remember the same details. But it's the kind of thing that people could easily forget. But because we're so hesitant to impose a verdict of Misa, so therefore they didn't do it. You can't execute him in Bezdin, but they do put him in jail and cause him to die. We said we give him an insufficient amount of bread and water. Earlier we said we feed him barley until his stomach bursts, and here we say we give him insufficient food. In either case, you always give him an insufficient amount of bread and water, and that causes his stomach to become small. And then afterwards, you give him the barley to cause him to die. So that's the Mefarshim ask, why would the Mishnah set it up like this? Say half of the procedure in one Mishnah and half in the other. Yeah, but that's discuss explanations of why it was necessary to do that in order to teach the entire din. So the Mishnah, Hagoynef as Hakisva. Someone who steals a kisva, the Gemara is going to explain that's referring to someone who steals one of the clay sharas in the Beis Hamikdash. V'hamakal b'kaisim, someone who curses using a kisha, some kind of sorceress incantation. V'aboyel aramis, someone who's ba on a non-Jewish woman. Kanoyim paigabay. The din is a kanoy, an extremist, someone who's a kanoy l'dvar Hashem, can execute them. they can go ahead and take the law into their own hands and kill him on the spot. This is only while they're, as it's going to be clear in the Gemara, this is only while they're middle of the act, or to stop them from continuing. Once they finish, once the act is done, then it's too late to do anything about it. So Zok the Gemara. I'm sorry, Zok the Mishnah. Kayin sheshimish betuma. There's another similar din of where you can take the law into your own hands. A kayin who is doing the avoid in the Beis Hamikdash betuma ein achav hakayinim mevina isel bezdin. They don't bring him to bezdin to get his punishment. They remove him from the azara because they're going to have a corpse on their hands soon. And they crack his head with baseball bats. They use sticks and they crack his head. A zar who is mishamish in the Beis Hamikdash, where there is a din also of Misa B'dei Shamayim. Rabbi Kiva says he gets a din of Chanek, and the Chacham say he gets Misa B'dei Shamayim. I believe the Gemara is going to discuss this more. Zok the Mishnah. A Gainav is a kisva. I'm sorry, I said we did that already. Zok the Gemara. My kisva. What is a kisva? Rabbi Yehuda Klei Sharos. It's a small clay sharos. This is talking about on the shulchan. They would put the bread on it every week, the lechem hapanim. So it was held up on the shulchan. They had a whole tower of racks, and underneath the bread were placed these half tubes that the bread was placed on that would allow air to circulate and it wouldn't get stale. So those tubes were called kashais. So we call them kisva. The pasuk says that the kayanim should not look upon kavala, means when it gets concealed, as the klei sharos are being put away, it says you shouldn't look, because the kayanim, if they're there at that time, they're subject to misa. So we say in the Kabbalah means when something is being covered over, it means when someone steals something, he covers it over, he hides it. So it's a remez that someone who steals from the claim sharos in the mikdash get misa. Next in the Mishnah was someone who was mevarach, who made a klala using some sorcerous entity. He makes a parallel to what we had discussed before about Mavarach Hashem, which was that someone who's Mavarach Hashem used the power of the B'nai Shalom to be Mavarach Hashem. So over here, he used the power of that, whatever that entity is, to be Makal of that entity. It says no, it's not that he used that kaisim to Makal the kaisim himself, but rather he makes a klala on a person, and to lekaina, which is referring to the B'nai Shalom, to the person who owns him, and to the one who created him. The one lekaina means the one who created him. Mikna is to the one who owns him. And you also reference to the B'nai Shalom. So it's a form of being Mavarach Hashem. Someone who's born a Rabbis. Born in Erev Kahana Merav. Like Pagu by Kanu Kanoyin Mao. What's the din if someone was born a Rabbis, he was born on a guy? What is his din if they didn't take the law into their own hands? Inche Rav Ligmerei. Rav couldn't remember what the halach was. Akiyul Rav Kahana b'Chalmei. He came across Rav Kahana in a cholam, and Rav Yehuda. Rav Kahana reminded Rav what the halacha was. Bogda Yehuda b'toiva. Yehuda betrayed, and he did a te'eva. The te'eva nest of Yisrael, and the te'eva was done in Yisrael. There's a pasuk b'Shalayim ki cholal Yehuda kodesh Hashem asher av. Yehuda was mechalal the kodesh, the kedusha of Hashem that he loved. Ubal bas kel necha, and he was ba on the daughter of a foreign god. Asa amalei hachi akriyan. So he said to Asa amalei hachi akriyan. So Kahana said, hold on a second. He said this to Rav Kahana, Krila of Kahana b'chalm. How does this work? Who is this? I'm a little confused. Who said what? Bominer of Kahana me Rav. Right, Rav Kahana asked Rav, and then Rav didn't know the answer, and then Rav heard this pasuk in a cholum, and he went back to Rav, and he said, "Amalei hachi akriyan." Oh, this is the pasuk that was read to me. Adkei Rav legame. At that point, Rav remembered what he had learned on this topic of someone who's born Isha Ramas. See, and he explained what the pasuk means, what it means. Bag the Yehuda zu avodas kechavim. That means Yehuda was over an avodas kechavim. V'chein Omer came begadtem bi beis Yisrael. Bnei Yisrael betrayed me. That's the Yidden who over avodas zah. No mashem. But the even esa bi Yisrael b'Shalayim zeh mishkav zacha. That's referring to mishkav zacha. V'chein Omer bezacha leitishkav mishkav isha te'evehi. Also use the lashon of te'eva. So you see, te'eva is a reference to mishkav zacha. Ki cholol Yehuda kodesh Hashem zu zayna. That Yehuda was mechal the kodesh Hashem. Kodesh is a reference to a zayna. V'chein waimer la'yeh kodesh. What's the pasuk? Dal la'yeh kodesh b'nei Yisrael la'yeh kodesh b'nei Yisrael. Uboil bas kel nechar. It was ba el nechar, who was ba on the daughter of a foreign god. That's talking about someone who's born a kusis, which is our question. What's the einish for Yisrael who's born on a non-Jew? Uksiv basrei yikaras Hashem leisha asher yasena erva aina. The Rebbeinu Shalom is going to be kairos. He's going to cut off. He's going to give a din karas to someone who will do erva aina, that asks and answers. Where's the whole pasuk? He's going to cut him off from the tents of Yaakov. And the one who brings a mincha to the Rebbeinu Shalom. The first part of the pasuk, Yasena er va'ina. That means if he's a Talmud Chacham who's born Isha Knanis, he's not going to have he's not going to have anyone to ask questions by the Chachamim or to answer the Talmidim. His children are not going to be Talmidei Chacham. And in ben Magish Minchal Hashem, and the second part of the pasuk ben Magish Minchal Hashem is referring to a Kain. If he's a Kain, his children are not going to be Kaihanim Hashem Tzavakos. But in any case, the point of the pasuk says that he gets krisis. So you see that the din of a person who's born an Aramis, if he doesn't get the einish of Kanayim Paigin by, he's going to end up with krisis, and he's going to die before his time, and his children will not be viable. They won't live long lives. Amar Rav Chia bar Avuya. Someone who's born a kusis, as if they wedded themselves to idolatry. Like he's ba on the daughter of a kel el necha. Do they really have daughters? It's talking about someone who's, doesn't mean someone who marries the daughter of a god, but rather means someone who's born on the daughter of an Ovid Kechav. Rabbi Bar Avuya, another member from the same Amora, unrelated to this, Kosev al Gulosei Shal Yayakim. It said about the skull of Yayakim, who was an evil king in Yisrael. Zois v'oid acheres. This and even more. Zakena de Rav Preda, I think that means the grandmother of Rav Preda. Ashka Chahu Golgalta. She found this skull that was lying in the outside of the gates of Yerushalayim. It was written under this and more. So that was obviously a reference to Yaakov, who was Yaakim's skull. Kavra, she buried it, Bahadar Ganav, and it was stolen. Kavra Bahadar Ganav. She reburied it, and Ruchia, buried it. I'm sorry.
It was grandfather.
It was the grandfather, right? That's what Rashi says. It was the grandfather who was Rav Chia bar Avua. So Zakena de Rav Preda was his grandfather, was Rav Chia bar Avua. So Rav Chia knew this din of that it's supposed to, that it's that this was a big rush and this was his punishment, that he didn't get a kfura. But nevertheless, he buried it. But I guess he felt that he felt at the time, it had been enough already. So now it shouldn't be left lying around. And it's still, I'm sorry, it bubbled up and came back to the surface. And it went back to the surface again. This must be the skull of Yayakim. He didn't realize whose it was until that point. But then when he realized it kept on bubbling up, he should get the burial of a chamar, take it and throw it away. The Shari Shalim, to Shari Shalim. Amar Malkuhu. It's not but he was not. In the end, he was a king. And he shouldn't be mavazed anymore. Shakla karcha b'shira. He wrapped it up in cloth. V'oisvei b'tifsa, and he put it in a box rather than. He didn't bury it because he saw that that was his gzera, that it wasn't supposed to be buried, but he didn't want it to be lying on the street. Asoy devisu, his wife came chazisa, and she found this box with the skull in it. Nafkas, and she took it out. Amalhu l'shravisa, she said to her neighbors, Amrila, hide the isisa. She told what happened. She found the skull in a box. Amrila, hide the isisa kamaisahi. The loikaminshila. The loikaminshila. It's the skull of your husband's first wife, and he still is fond of her, and he keeps it as a memento. Manshila shragzala shanu of a kolsa. So she took it and she threw it in the oven to burn it up. She didn't want him to have his memento. The Rebbe Shalom has his way of making sure this Yaakov was not intended to get a proper burial. The Rebbe Shalom worked it that in the end it got cremated. That was his einish. Yeah, I guess if there's a specific pasuk that we learn that was the einish that he was intended to get, because we know that for anyone, no matter how far off they are, we move mountains in order to make sure they're not cremated. And you see, the Rebbe Shalom made sure that he was bedafka cremated, and he wasn't supposed to get a kfura, even though he was a yid. Kiyasar of Dimi, Amar Dimi, Amar Beis Din Shel Chashmonai Gazru. Habal Akus Chayav Aleh Mishum Nashga. Bezin Chashmonaim said someone who's born a non-Jew is Chayav Nashga. Kiyasar Rabbanam Mishum Nashgas. We're going to say what those are. So Nashga is Nida. It's treated as a Nida. Which I think Rashi explains all of them. But Nida is because she's unclean. A guy is considered unclean like a Nida. Shivcha, it's similar to a Shivcha. There's an Isser to be born a Shivcha, a non-Jewish slave woman who is in a marriage to either a Eved Knani or an Eved Ivri, a Goya, and for being born a Goya, which is you're not allowed to marry a non-Jewish woman. There's a lav on that. This is not really the same thing. It's just being born her, but the Chachamim impose this as well on him. And Zaina, you're not allowed to marry a Zaina. Zaina is somebody who was born or someone that's also to them. Now, Ibn Kechavim has no Isser be on her. She doesn't become a psul. The example of that is a woman who was a almana who married a kain gadol. She was over in a lav, so then she becomes like a zayin, and a kain is not allowed to marry her anymore. Av mishum ishus leslu. So he says he doesn't have the last one, aleph. Aleph would be ishus, that it's treated as if he was born on a married woman, but there's no ishus ish by a guy, and therefore he's not going to be over in it. The other one, Mandam, says no. Even though there's no ishus, there's no marriage technically by goyim, they don't have kedushin, and they don't have nesuin, but they still have common law marriages, and therefore he says aleph instead of zaina. Amr Chizda. Habol limlech, if someone comes to ask, right, he sees a yid who's being bought on a goita, and he goes to the bezin and he says, do I have the din of kanayim payim? Should I take a spear and go kill him? Ein myron line. You don't give a psak that he should do so. It's only a self-help situation. That means if you do it on your own, there's not going to be any consequences. But if you ask for the halacha, they're not going to tell you to do that. Someone who asks, you don't tell him to do so. Not only that, Empirish Zimri who is the prototypical case of Kanayim Paigambai, which we're going to go into great detail, the story of Zimri. If Zimri, who was being bought on a Midyanis, had and Pinchas killed him with the din of Kanayim Paigambai, if Zimri had stopped being bought on the Knanis, and Pinchas had then killed Zimri, Naragala, Pinchas himself would have gotten Misa. There's no din of Kanayim Paigambai after the act is completed. So if Pinchas waited till after they were done, he himself would have gotten Misa. Nepech Zimri v'hargul Pinchas, if Zimri stopped what he was doing and killed Pinchas, ein neragala. Zimri would not have been killed for killing Pinchas. Ari roidefu. There's a roidef, because once Zimri stops, then there's no chiyav on him, there's no din of Kanayim Paigambai, and he's justified to protect himself. Now we're going to say the whole story of Zimri, how it happened. Moshe Rabbeinu said to the shoftim of the Bnei Yisrael, halach shiftei shel Shimon, that it's a whole discussion about how they were being oved avodah zarah, and he said, let's go kill those who are oved avodah zarah. That what happened was, when Bilam was not able to get the Yidden, he was not able to be Mikal the Yidden, so Balak asked him, what's the Eitzah? What can we do? He said, the only way you can get the Yidden is by causing them to be Oved Averis. Then the Rebbeinu Shalom will not protect them. So he said the Eitzah is, if you get them to be Oved Averis, then you'll open the door. So he sent over, Balak sent over the woman to try to entice the Bnei Yisrael to be born them. And then once they got them to be both them, once they got them to be over to be over Averis, then they were mamshich them, they continued, they got them to be over Avodah Zarah. So we said Halach Shiftei Shel Shimon Eitzel Zimri ben Salua. So Moshe Rabbeinu said you have to go kill them because they're being over Avodah Zarah. So the whole Shevet Shimon went to Zimri ben Salua, who we're going to see he had 5 different names, but he was the Nasi of Shimon. They said to him, you're the leader of the tribe, and you're the leader of the Shevet, and they're killing us, and you're not doing anything. Ma'asa. So what did he do? Amr v'kibitz chaf dalad alos Yisrael. He took 24,000 Yidden. They went to this woman who was a Midianist named Kizbi, Amalei Hashmieli, and he said to her, I'm going to be born you, and I'm going to prove that Moshe Rabbeinu can't do anything. Amalei Bas Melechani. She said, I'm not going to be born you. I'm the daughter of the king. He told me I should only go to Moshe Rabbeinu, only to the greatest of to the leader of the Yidden. He said, Moshe is no better than me. He's just the leader of his shevet. And I'm bigger than Moshe Rabbeinu. Who's Sheni Labaten? But who's Shlishi Labaten? I am from Shimon, which is the second of the Shvatim, and Moshe is from Levi, which is the third of the Shvatim. I think that his meaning was also Reuben lost the Bechaira because of his Averis. So then he says, so the leadership of Klal Yisrael devolved onto the second Shevet, which is Shimon, and I'm the leader of Shimon, so I'm really the leader of Klal Yisrael. So she was masking. So he grabbed her by her hair, and he brought her to Moshe. Amlei ben Amram zu asura muteres. Is this woman also to me or mutter to me? And if you're going to say she's also because she's not Jewish, who told you that Tzipora is mutter to you? Your wife, Moshe, she's also a daughter of a non-Jew. The Salman Menu Halacha. Moshe Rabbeinu knew that it was incorrect. Obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu's wife was a Geyeris, and this wasn't. But he didn't know what is the din, how should he deal with it. He forgot the halacha of Kanayim Paigenbai. Nogu kulam b'bchia. Everyone go kulam b'bchila. Everyone started to cry. V'hainu siv v'hema b'ichem pesach hayom ma'id. They were all crying by the entrance of the hayom ma'id. Siv v'yar Pinchas ben Elazar. Pinchas ben Elazar saw. Ma ra amrav ra. Maisa b'niskar halacha. He saw what was happening. He remembered the halacha of Kanayim Paigenbai. Amaloi achi avi abba loy kachlam natani b'redcha mehar Sinai. Didn't the brother of my father's father, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, Pinchas was Aaron HaKohen's grandson. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. So he said, didn't you, Moshe Rabbeinu, teach me when you came down from Sinai, you taught me this din of halacha Sinai, that one is allowed to kill someone who does this. The one who reads the letter, the person who brings the letter, he's the one who should carry out its instructions. Meaning, you're the one who remembered the halacha. So rather than Moshe didn't paskin halacha, but he said, since you're the one who remembered the halacha, you should carry it out and be paigein. And that's what he did. He went and he took the spear and he killed both Zimri and Cosby. Shmuel Amar, he says, this din of Ra Vayar Pinchas, what did he see? He says a different shah. Shmuel Amar Ra she'ein chachma ve'ein tuma ve'ein eitza neged Hashem. There's no chachma, there's no tfuna, and there's no eitza, there's no cheshbainis when there's a chil Hashem. Kol makmish is chil Hashem in chalgun kam l'rav. You don't wait for the rav. Meaning, when Pinchas saw this, even though the din is you're not supposed to contradict your Rebbe and not tell him what the halacha is, but a makom of chil Hashem, then you have to go ahead anyway. Therefore, he stated what the halacha was, even though Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. Yitzchak Rebbe Lazar Ra Sheba Malach Lehishkas Ba'am. He saw that a Malach was destroying the and he left. I'm sorry, Ra Sheba Malach Lehishkas Ba'am. He saw that there was a Malach that was coming and destroying the nation. So therefore, he had to immediately do Kanayim Paigamba to save the Malach from continuing its path of destruction. It says that Pinchas went and he took a spear. He left the congregation and he took a spear. And the fact that it says he first went out and then he took a spear, that tells you that you can't bring your spear into the Beis HaMedrash. So then he did a strategy. He took the spear, the point of the spear off. He detached it. He put it into his pocket. He was like limping along, using the wooden handle of the spear to support himself, treating it like a stick. When he reached the Shevet of Shimon, he said to him, "I'm not any better than you. We both went together by Shimon and Levi. Achavu, they both went and they killed Shechem by the Maisa of Dinah. So I also am going to be." He made it sound like he was also going to do the same avera. He's also going to be boil on an aramis. Hitiru Prushin es hadavar. They said Hitiru Prushin es hadavar. Even the Prussian, Pinchas was known as a Greiset Tzaddik, even he is going to be ba on the aramis. Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Shisha Nisim Nasu Loila Pinchas. So then when he went in, he killed that's when he killed Zimri. That's how he got his way in. He made it look like he wasn't carrying a weapon, and he convinced them to let it in. There was 6 Nisim that happened to him. First of all, Zimri, all he had to do was stop being ba on her, and then immediately the din of Kanayim Paigambai would stop and he would save his life. Also, that that Zimri could have called them to stop Pinchas, and he didn't say anything. He speared them both through Zimri and Kazvi, through both of them, through his Zachros and through her Ma'osa Makam. They didn't slip off the spear. That the Malach came and enlarged the doorway, that he was able to carry out the 2 of them still impaled on his spear, to show the Bezdin that he had done it while they were in the middle of the act. Because like we said, the tour of Kanayim Paigambai is only if you catch them in the middle of the act. Once they separate, it's too late. So he was able to provide evidence by bringing them still on the spear. That the Malach was going destroying the nation. He took the two perpetrators and he threw them down in front of the Bersham. Are you going to kill 24,000 of the Yidden? There were 24,000 victims. That Pinchas stood and he davened. Not that he was mispal, but rather he argued. He made a negotiation in Bershalim. Bikshu, he was saying that you shouldn't kill any more Yidden. I'm not sure exactly when he stopped them. It sounds like there were 20. I think what it means is there was 24,000 that had gone with Zimri, and they were all going to die. And he stopped the plague in its tracks before all of them could be killed. Bikshu Malachei Shars L'Davchai. The Malachei Shars wanted to stop Pinchas from arguing with the Bersham. Amalan Hinichaloi Kanoi ben Kanoihu. Pinchas is the Kanoi, who's the son of a Kanoi. Meaning referring to who is the other Kanoi? What does Rashi say? Ben Kanoi Mishevet Levi, right? Shekini b'Maisa Dina. The Levi was also a Kanoi. Or who Meshiv? Kanoi ben Kanoi, who Meshiv Chemo ben Meshiv Chemo. He's also the grandson of Aaron HaKohen, who was a Meshiv Chemo. He knew how to appease the Rebbeinu Shalom's anger. His chilu shvatim mevazen oisai. The shvatim started to be mevazen. Isi ben puti zeh shepitim avi imoi agalam la'avodas kechavim. They started to talk about Pinchas. They say his own grandmother was the daughter of Yisroi. I'm sorry, his mother was the daughter of Yisroi. Elazar was married to a daughter of Yisroi, and so his own grandfather was an Oived Avodas Kechavim, Bahar Nasi Shevim Yisrael, and he took it upon himself to kill one of the Nesiim, because of Yachsu, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, that he's a grandson of Aaron, so don't make light of him. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe, Haktem lo Shalom, you should be the first one and go congratulate Pinchas for what he did. That Moshe Rabbeinu said, I'm going to give him my bris of shalom, that he did the correct thing. It's such a strong kapara that it should extend forever. For the Maisa of Pinchas, that he took it upon himself that it should really last forever, to be makapar on many averis that the Yidden did. Amar Nachman Rav, my dechsev zarzid mosnayim, the zarzid is a kind of animal. Masnayim, that's a zariz, that's capable. Masnayim means of in its legs. A tayesh is a goat, umelech, and a king. Elkaim imoy, that it's not possible. Elkaim imoy, can you go up against them? So the Gemara dashes, what does it mean? Dav meis ve'esem ve'arba be'ilas. 424 bias. Baal Oisa Rasha. That's what Zimri was ba on Kizvi. Oisa Hayam on that day. V'himtin le Pinchas asher tashash koichai. And Pinchas waited until he was very worn out. When he yadeh Hashem malach elkam imay. And he didn't know that the Rebbeinu Shalom was with him. We dash instead of elkam imay, that against he can't be rebel against. He said we'd say that we dash him to elkam elikim. The Rebbeinu Shalom was together with him. But Sisatana Shishim Ashenasa Kabeya Hamuzras. It was 60. He was born her 60 times until he became like a egg that has nothing left to it. It's ruined. And he had been born so many times, he became like a row in the field that's full of water. Kahana, the place she was sitting on. These are all obviously exaggerations. The place she was sitting on was the size of a Beisa, Tan Rav Yosef, Kevesh Amma. Her Isa Makam, since he was born so many times, was the size of an Amma. Amr of Sheshes, like Kizbi Shma, his real name was not Kizbi, Ela Shavilni Bas Tzur. His real name was Shavilni Bas Tzur Shma. Shma Kizbi, Shekazva Ba'aviyah. That her father told her only to be born Moshe, and she was born instead on Shimon. She said, "Let me be born in this together with this man." Behind the dami inchi, bein kani lo'orvani shavilnoi, between the reeds and the swamp is the shavilnoi, is I think the water. I'm sorry, Ben Kani Lo'ovani Shavilni, my boy. What is Shavilni? That's her name. What is she doing in this place between the reeds and the swamp? Bahadi Klapi, the Kani Shavilni, my boy. What is she doing amongst the peeled reeds and swamp? Gafsal Le'ima. So the Gemara says certainly her mother sent her there to be mizana. That means what is she hanging out for? She knows, what's going to happen if the mother sends her to go make herself available. It's going to what's going to happen is going to happen. Amr Rav Yochanan, Chamesh Shemes Yeshlai. This man who was born, the Nasi of Shimon, had 5 names. Zimri. One was Zimri, uben Salua, v'Shaul, uben Akranas, v'Shlumiel, ben Tsurishada. Zimri al shenasav kabeya hamuzras, like we said before, he became like an egg that was ruined. Ben Salua al shehsliya avoyne shel mishpachte, that he caused people to become public knowledge about his avoynes of his mishpacha, because once they mentioned him, they also mentioned Shimon and his that he was a kanoi. He talked about that. Shol al shehishel atzmoi ledvar avera, because he made himself available for an avera. Ben Aknan sha'asa ma'aseh Knan. He was born a Knan and he did what the Knanim did. Umashmoi, his real name was Shlumiel ben Tzuri Shadoi Shmoi. Okay. Okay. We will stop over here, and tomorrow we're going to start with a little bit of Kachim.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.
Tomorrow, Shul, 6:25.
Okay, okay, correct.
Okay. Maybe